Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Everyday Excellence. I'm your host, Todd Baldwin, and today we have Chris Edwards, the owner of Right This Way Flooring. Chris, how you doing?
Good, Todd. How you doing?
And it's a good day. We were just chatting. It's Thursday, and so the weekend's around the corner. So I'm doing great. Thanks for hopping on. Excited to dive in and chat with you a little bit. So tell us, Chris, for our listeners hearing about Right This Way Flooring for the first time, give us a quick overview of what you do and who you serve.
Yeah, Right This Way Flooring is a startup venture of mine. We're based in Boulder, Colorado. We actually just had our ribbon cutting about 4 months ago. So we are a brand new flooring store installation service in Boulder. We serve retail customers, we serve commercial customers, multifamily. We kind of do a little bit of everything right now. This is the second flooring venture that I've done. This is the first startup I've done. I did a acquisition previously, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, we're a full service flooring outfit. We do tile, carpet, hardwood, sand and refinish, you name it. If it's on the floor, we do it. And yeah, that's the quick 30-second overview about what we're doing.
Love it. Love Colorado too. Just saying, I wish I was up in Colorado. Haven't been in the mountains in a while. I miss it. So, all right. So you mentioned this is your second venture into the flooring space. So let's rewind the clock because you have a very unique story, right? And how you got into the flooring business. So just tell our listeners about your entrepreneurial journey and jumping from corporate America into owning a business and how all that got started.
Yeah, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So startups, business, being like working for yourself has kind of always been in my blood and DNA a little bit. But I started my career in a company called Zayo Group, which was a telecom roll up and ultimately was the largest IPO in Colorado history. So it's kind of a part of a rocket ship right out of college, part of their finance team, investor relations, kind of did a number of stops there, but got a lot of exposure to value creation through acquisitions. Um, During my time there, they did about 40 acquisitions while I was there. So it was a pretty aggressive roll up. And from there, I went into the consulting world, namely doing Salesforce.com projects. So got a lot of, cool exposure into different industries, verticals, and did that for about 3 or 4 years. And then in the middle of the pandemic, 2020, kind of looked around, like a lot of people, sort of evaluated what I really want out of life and decided that, I had just turned 30 and decided that if I didn't take a bet on myself and go a more entrepreneurial route, it would be harder and harder to make that happen. I was engaged to get married and figured if I didn't do it now, then when would I actually do it? It would only get harder and more comfortable for me. So I decided to quit my job in October of 2020 to do a self-funded search. And during that time, I looked at all sorts of different businesses and deals, and ultimately found a deal in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, a flooring store that had been there for about 15 years. And I closed on it in February of 21. So I moved up to Steamboat. My fiance and I at the time moved up into a small condo there, and I learned the flooring business. I had no experience in flooring before, but very quickly got up to speed, took some punches in the face, and kind of figured things out along the way. And ultimately, we grew that business pretty substantially. We doubled EBITDA, and then we sold it in October of 24. So it was a pretty quick cycle from buying to exit. It was about 3.5, a little over 3.5 years, but it was a great experience. Learned a lot. Like I said, took some punches, kind of figured out what entrepreneurship through acquisition is all about, and small business ownership is all about, and cut my teeth with that business. And so, yeah, we can dive into details, but that's how I got into the flooring business.
It's such a great story. Congrats for taking that leap of faith too. Um, I mention this all the time on my podcast. People always want to start their own business, right? I hear it all the time. And then I want to have a business. I want to do my own thing. And then when it's time to actually do it and take that jump off what I call the entrepreneurial cliff, it's scary, right? So, um, you not only did it, then you went on the job search, right? And then you landed in an industry where you had no experience at all. So, um, some might say it's a definition of crazy, but you bet on yourself, and obviously it paid off because you, in 3.5 years, you're able to exit door right, and not only just sell, but had a good exit, right? So, congrats on all that. That's cool. That's been one of the fun things of doing these podcasts, is just hearing everybody's story. Why
Yeah,
flooring? Is it just the deal you liked with Steamboat? I mean, the flooring company, or what made you dive in there?
it met a lot of the criteria in my buy box. It was big enough where it made sense for me to do that instead of go back to corporate. At the time, it was doing about 3 million of revenue. So, it was a fairly sizable business. It was doing about, 500K of seller discretionary earnings, STE, EBITDA, whatever you want to call it. And so, it was sizable enough where, okay, I think I can, make some money doing this, not just buy myself a tiny little job or something.
Sure.
Um, but at the same time, it wasn't so big that I had to take out, a max, SBA loan, $5 million or something like that. I bought it for about 1.7 million, which, it was very scary to take out all that debt and to sign on the dotted line of a personal guarantee. But it wasn't so big that I felt like this is too much for me to chew. So it was big enough to make sense, small enough that it wasn't overly scary, and was, a good enough opportunity for me to learn what small business ownership was all about. I love Steamboat. For those who have been there, it's a beautiful area, awesome place in the country. So the opportunity to operate a small business in a beautiful place like Steamboat was really enticing. Attractive market dynamics in Steamboat, where it's a small town but affluent, a lot of money there. They support the local small businesses. There wasn't a floor and decor there. There's not a ton of competition. And so, having that sort of geographic moat a little bit was pretty attractive and had a lot of name recognition within the community. So, for all those reasons, I thought it made sense. Flooring wasn't an industry where I needed a specific certification in like plumbing or electrical. So it felt like it was something I could get up to speed on fairly quickly. And there's also a lot of good tailwinds at the time. A lot of people moving up to Steamboat from the city, people kind of getting sick of COVID and being in the city and lockdowns. They want to get up to the mountains, people working remotely. They want to, if you're working remote, you might as well be in Steamboat. So
Sure.
a lot of great tailwinds for the remodel industry, especially in the mountains at that time. So for all those reasons, I thought it made sense. And fortunately, it played out pretty well.
Well, again, man, to go and actually execute that is what's so cool to me. Because again, so many people just don't ever bet on themselves, right? And I love what you say, because the older you get, and I remember back being in my early 30s too, and you feel like you're older, but now when you're in your 50s, like me, you're like, man, I was still a baby. But I do believe the longer you wait and the bigger that lifestyle grows, the harder it is to let it all go, and just try to start over. I'm curious. So when you look back now, what did you underestimate the most about being a business owner?
I would say that Uh, it's really hard to describe to someone when they're talking about entrepreneurship and going from corporate to entrepreneurship, small business ownership. Um, there's a level of accountability that you just don't have in corporate America that you do in a small business. If you have a pissed off customer, you have to deal with it. Um, oftentimes in corporate roles, you have a little bit of buffer between yourself and actual accountability and like, real um, things that are coming down hard on you, especially in consulting. I think consultants are notorious for this. Like you can kind of make all the recommendations in the world and, give these beautiful presentations and PowerPoints, but if you never really have to actually like have the rubber meet the road. So for me, it was the intensity of actually having to be like accountable to your customers, to your suppliers, to your debt, to your bank. I mean, it's a very different thing. So a lot of people are just not comfortable with that level of responsibility and accountability. I think for me, going from white collar to blue collar was a pretty big shift. I had some blue collar experience. I grew up in a more rural part of Colorado, and I worked at a feed store and was delivering hay and stuff like that. So it's not like I was totally out like a fish out of water, but
Sure.
still, I've spent the last 10 years in consulting and corporate finance. That's a pretty kind of buttoned up, white collar type of environment, and going from that to you know ins- carpet installers that you're bailing out of jail, things like that. So it's a very different world and mindset, um, personalities to juggle. In small business, there's just a lot of you're just dealing with people all the time. So um, the type of person you're dealing with in a blue collar type of environment is very different than a corporate environment.
So, Chris, you mentioned the difference, right, in this accountability and from corporate to owning your own business. What was it like now having to worry about your employees and payroll? Because that's something in the corporate America that you really don't think much about.
Yeah, it's a very different thing where you are on the hook for making sure you have enough cash for payroll. You have to make your debt payments every month. You have to, pay your suppliers on time. Fortunately, I had a decent financial kind of experience where that stuff wasn't too overwhelming for me. But yeah, I mean, having that type of accountability for people is a very different thing. The installers want their checks every week. If you mess up a job, a customer wants a credit. So these are things you just don't ever have to really deal with in the corporate environment. And when it comes to you and you have to like actually deliver on that, and if you make a mistake, you need to make it right. It's just a very different level of accountability. Oftentimes, in my experience, people are working these corporate jobs and they're really not accountable to much. It's pretty much a pretty tush gig, and maybe every now and then they have a boss that kind of gives them some harsh feedback. But in small business, if you mess up someone's carpet job, if you nick a wall of drywall and they're not happy about it, you got to figure it out and make it right. And that's just a very different situation to find yourself in.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're accountable for everything, right? And so, and the owner's the last one to get paid. So you got to make sure everybody else gets paid first. I'm curious because you said you sold your first flooring business, right? And had a really successful exit, took some time off. What made you decide to jump back into the fire and build another flooring company?
It's a good question. I often ask myself why I did that, but I felt like I understand the flooring industry now. I have a lot of good connections. I evaluated other opportunities when I took a little bit of time off after the exit, and decided that I wanted to double down on an industry that I, painstakingly through blood, sweat, and tears got some experience in. And the thought of trying to go learn a new industry and a new, you know, whether it's plumbing or whatever, I decided that I would rather stick with what I know, compound what I know, um, build a brand and a company from scratch the right way, no pun intended. But wanted to just kind of build a foundation and a solid infrastructure to hopefully have a little bit more of a scalable model and scalable business than I had before. So yeah, I took some time. I've looked at a lot of different things, but there's a lot that I do like about the flooring industry. Um, and I decided that I'd rather compound my knowledge, my relationships, my
Sure.
skills instead of starting over again.
And this one you started from ground floor, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
totally from scratch, new showroom, new brand, new everything.
So, and I love that too. Hey, I'm going to double down. I know the business. I did it once. I can do it again. So, did you get bored in that time off? Did you get antsy that, or did you say No, I loved every bit of it. What was that like?
It was great. I mean, I did do some consulting. I helped some other flooring businesses around the country. So it was really nice to kind of get under the hood of other companies and see how they operate and help them out. So I did work a little bit, but it was an awesome time for me. I just had my second daughter, and so I was able to, you know, be more present for her and my first daughter. Was able to enjoy Steamboat a little bit more. Did a lot of snowboarding, hiking, kind of just getting outside more stuff. Like I just didn't have a lot of time for that when I was operating the flooring business. So it was really nice to like enjoy a beautiful part, like a beautiful part of the country, like Steamboat, and get outside a little more. Yes, but I did get antsy. I did get a little bit, you know, okay, what's next? I certainly wasn't gonna like retire or anything like that. I'm just too young for that. So
Sure,
um, I, uh, I really enjoyed the time off, was able to breathe a little bit and kind of, you know, relax. But I'm glad to be back at it now and back in the fire and it was a recharging time for sure.
sure. Talk a little bit about culture, right? Because it's so important in a business. And I'm just curious, what kind of culture are you trying to build at Right Way Flooring? Right This Way Flooring. Let me get that right. Right This Way
Yeah.
Flooring.
Well, I'm trying to build, you know, we're trying to build a a culture of accountability, a culture of that's really system, you know, driven. We've spent a lot of time thinking about, you know, how we can improve all aspects of the business, from the customer experience to the lead generation side, to our to our marketing. So we have 5 core values. One is systems driven. One is be hospitable, adaptable, responsible, and positive. So you know everything that we do, and the acronym there is SHARP. You know everything we do, we try to filter through that lens of like, are we building a really good system? Are we, you know, for everything that we do? I mean, we literally have a flow chart for how we do a carpet job, making sure that we do it this way every single time. If we follow this process, we'll be really strong. I think a lot of flooring stores do not have robust systems and processes. It's kind of a free for all. I mean, a lot of small businesses are like this. I'd say most of them are like this.
Sure.
So really process system driven, you know, hospitable. What I would say to that is we really want to have like an excellent customer experience from start to finish, from initial consultation through, you know, then purchasing to the scheduling process, to the installation process, to the final walkthrough and closeout, making sure we're wowing them at every single turn. So that's something we're really focused on, is the customer experience. And um, you know, all everything that we do is filtered through the lens of these values. So I would say that my experience in the first company that I bought was a really difficult culture, really negative. A lot of kind of just, it was just papers flying all over the place. So trying to get away from that totally and build a culture from the get go that focuses on these values from scratch, and something that we embody in everything that we do.
How big of um when you bought that first store, it sounds like the culture was a mess. So you had to go in and fix that. How much impact did that have in you being able to double the EBITDA, right? Or to grow that and double that? Had to be huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. You know, um, there was um, yeah, I would say the customer experience was not great when I acquired it. I mean, like, I don't wanna, like, you know, badmouth the previous owner or anything like that, but,
Sure.
you know, like, there's definitely some challenges with how they treated customers. Just the way that the company ran, it was very much like we have to have our hair on fire at all times or we're not doing our job, you know? So, you know, just taking the time to step back, like, let's talk about the process we're actually doing here. Let's not just like jump in and like have this be a fire drill. We took the time to build systems and processes, and just by doing that and actually like defining how this company actually operates, and, you know, drilling into each and everything that we do and making it better. It made the company way more efficient. We were able to save a lot of money on OpEx. We were able to grow the top line about 50%. So even with, only growing the top line 50%, we were still able to double EBITDA because we were just more efficient with everything that we did.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you have how much of the old team did you have to replace? If you just said percentage wise, I'm just
All
curious.
of them,
All of
100%.
them, all of them had to go.
I mean, some stayed longer than others, but
Sure,
yeah, I mean, eventually it was 100% turnover.
I got you. So now you've got the new store, right? Right this way, flooring, and I'm just curious. What's your growth vision, right? I mean, you've been there, done that. You grew a store. Are you trying to grow aggressively, or are you intentionally taking more controlled approach this time? What's your strategy?
My strategy is we want to grow quickly for sure. We just opened up, like I said, about 4 months ago. We're on track to do about 1 to 1.5 million this year. So, I think it's a solid start for sure.
Sure.
Um, I would say that we want to really nail this store and like have this be as profitable as possible, have as quick of a payback as possible. Like our North Star right now is to just get to profitability. So if we can get to profitability within 6 months of opening on a regular basis, I would consider that to be solid. And then have a payback period of about 18 months, something like that. That'd be fantastic. And then once we prove out that we have an organic growth model with this first store, then go open up a second store.
So, Chris, you had just mentioned that you would love to create this model, right, of how to open from scratch and get to profitability in the first 6 months, pay back within 18 months, and then take that model and open other stores. So, how many stores would you like to have in, say, 3 to 5 years?
I would love to look back in 3 to 5 years, 5 years from now, say we have 3 stores, 5 stores, something like that. I'd love to be able to, go to the equity markets and raise some capital and put a little bit of fuel on the fire. If we're able to demonstrate that we have a model here that's replicable. So that's my focus now is just nail this first store, um, demonstrate that we know what we're doing with all channels not and avenues for organic growth. And then I do at some point with I would like to layer on inorganic growth and kind of go back to the ETA model where you're acquiring existing stores or whatever. I think there's a lot of flooring stores out there that don't have a succession plan, or they're mom and pops that have been operating it for 30 years and their kids don't want it. They want the kids want to be in tech or whatever. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there to kind of mix in some inorganic growth, but my focus right now is really just dial in the systems and processes for this first store, have it be profitable, have a compelling payback story, and potentially, open up a few more stores here in the next few years.
Sounds like a great plan. This isn't just build this and sell it. You like really want to create a model that you could really have rapid growth. I love that. So this is a much bigger play than
Yeah, I would like to think that that's what I'm doing. We'll see what happens. That's sort of the idea
yeah.
is to have this be a multiple branch kind of model. Um, that's easier said than done, but yeah, I think we're taking the steps to get there, and we have to earn it. We have to put one foot in front of the other and not skip steps and make it happen. So it's on us to execute. But I do think the flooring industry it's a big market. There's a lot of opportunity out there. It's often overlooked. A lot of private equity money is flowing into HVAC and plumbing and these huge
Sure.
multiples that you're seeing out there, but flooring for whatever reason doesn't get a ton of love and attention. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. And maybe I'm just doing this by myself because I'm crazy, but hopefully at some point, someone can see the value of what we're building, and maybe we sell it 10 years from now and we have 10 locations and they can grow from there. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah, I think there's a lot of growth. I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially with the I'll say mom and pops for lack of a better word, but just people have been in the business forever and also it's like, hey, what do I do with this? I need to exit door right. I definitely think there's opportunity there. You mentioned lead gen. I'm curious because I have a digital marketing company, so I like to talk a little bit about marketing. Where do most of your leads come from today? What's your best channels for marketing?
It's it's a mix of everything. We've done a decent amount through lead aggregators like Thumbtack, namely. It's been a decent channel for us. We're starting to see a lot more leads come through organic search. So we've invested quite a bit in SEO. So a lot more website form fills, a lot of like Google My Business profile, leads, which has been great. Walk-in traffic in our showroom has been pretty solid for just people walking in and requesting a consultation. So that's been a pretty solid lead gen source for us. A lot of word of mouth. And we've also spent a lot of time talking, networking with, key personas we're going after, architects, builders, GCs, designers, property managers, real estate agents. So we're aggressively going after those types of personas and spending a lot of time just hitting the pavement and getting in front of people. And that has by far been our most profitable channel so far. Is just getting out there talking to people. Um, we joined local chambers, BNI groups, stuff like that. Seeing some fruit for that from that, but honestly, this is a relationship based business. It's a higher ticket business. You got to get out there and get in front of people. So kind of just good old fashioned, face to face networking has been really our most profitable channel right now. We're still trying to crack the nut on digital lead gen. So Google ads, um, LSA, Facebook ads. We're trying all that stuff without much success right now, but we're still trying to figure that out. But yeah, we're trying it a lot right now, and it's definitely been a humbling experience to trying to figure out what's working and what's not working, and I'm learning
Sure.
a lot.
Well, a couple of things you mentioned there. You said you invested in SEO and organic, which I love because I think that's a big mistake. Business owners um, they don't invest in that because they can't see immediate return because it does take time. But if done properly, I've never worked with a business owner. I always put it this way that after we got over the hump and we went through that period of time and we did start to see real rankings on page one and those rankings starting to grow in multiple keywords and other parts of their business, see that profile starting to show up and what we call the three pack. So it's showing up on page one, which is the most visited part of the traffic on Google. They just don't invest in that. They don't have the patience. But I've never had a business owner tell me they regretted going through the pain, right, to get the gain. No, I didn't mean to rhyme there, but I did. But so great job there. That, in my opinion, doing this for many many years and putting emphasis on that because they want to throw so much money in the paid, and paid can definitely drive in traffic now, but that's a whole another art to optimizing and making sure Google's not robbing you blind. But you can become hostage to it because you never built a solid foundation organically. So, for whatever that's worth, being in a marketer, I love hearing that. I think that's a great investment. I love that you're old school BNI chamber and just getting out, shaking hands, right?
Yep.
I think that's really cool too. What about like ChatGPT? Are you guys showing up for searches or on the LLMs, the AI side of the house? Are you seeing some leads come from there as well?
We are actually, yeah, that's actually been more, uh, yeah, we've seen that more and more recently. In the last 2 weeks, we've probably gotten 3 or 4 leads just from LLM, which is great. I mean, like, I think that's kind of goes hand in hand with SEO. I mean, I'm sure you guys are, having your clients invest in that as well. But yeah, through our investments in SEO, we've seen LLM start to spit us out a little bit more, which is great. And yeah, so definitely think that that's going to be more and more a part of how people find us.
Good solid SEO foundation. And if you're showing up there, you should be showing up in LLMs. But the big shift, if I tell clients all the time, is that um, think of your website nowadays as answer first, right? You need to make sure your content is geared towards you're answering questions, really robust FAQs, because the public's being trained to search on these LLMs different from Google, right? And so instead of flooring near me, it's a long tail question about what they're experiencing. At the end of the day, it gets around I need some new hardwood floors. Who's a trusted company? Who would you recommend? But they're asking these questions. So an easy way to think about it, if your content's geared right, is are you answering the questions that that the people looking for you, right, are searching and asking? And so, because that big shift, if business owners don't make that shift and really put a big focus on that content, they could be ranking well today, but they could see that really deteriorate here in the near future. And then, of course, Google said they're going to all AI mode, basically. So the blue links are going to be pushed way down. It's just going to be a different experience. But um, things we just talk about to our clients all the time. But here's what I tell also people, business owners, because look, at the end of the day, ChatGPT, right? If someone's looking for flooring and however they search that query, they still want ChatGPT to give them recommendations of good, who do they recommend? Who are good flooring companies in my community or city? Because if that result doesn't happen, then nobody uses ChatGPT to look up businesses, right? Um, so the question is, and with the AIs, if anybody tells you they've got it all figured out, they're lying to you. Run from that agency. Run from them, Chris. But at the end of the day, yes. What do I need? How's my content need to be structured so the LLMs like me, and of course Google still likes me. That's the other thing. Google's not going away. People are like, well, SEO's dead or Google's going away. No, no. Google prints money. They are heavily invested in AI, and they're not going down ever, I think, but yeah, AI's got their attention. So it's interesting. But I love all that. I could talk marketing all day. I love that you're getting some ChatGPT leads. Are you guys doing a good job tracking all your leads as far as knowing exactly where the lead comes from?
Oh, yeah, we're religious about it. Every single lead, we tag it to a lead source. I am anal about, and tracking that, how like our spend to our number of leads, our gross profit to our customer acquisition costs. I mean, that those ratios I track religiously. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I've got a whole model that I like review on a weekly basis, and I'm seeing where the leads are coming from, what's profitable, what's not, and we're tracking that stuff like a hog. I did not do a very good job of that in my first go around. It was just hard because that just infrastructure wasn't there when I bought the business. Did people just kind of walked in the door, and I wasn't really sure how they came, or and it was a small town, so you know it was just hard to track lead sources. But now we're extremely meticulous about it.
I love that. That's one of our biggest frustrations is when a business owner or someone in an organization is not tracking what I call the end of the funnel. Because I can tell you if it came from chat or paid or organic or Facebook, but what I can't tell you is did it close and what was the revenue, right? And so, especially when you're doing like paid, I mean, you got to have these closed jobs and opportunities and good leads. That data being fed back to Google, right? So great job there. That's music to my ears too, because we're seeing all these leads and they're questioning, well, I don't know if it's working. Like, well, you don't know it's working because you're not tracking the back end of the funnel, right? And also, where do you know to adjust? Where do you know to put the hammer down or toggle back if you don't know what's actually converting? Real quick, I'm just curious. What do you think the struggle is with paid? What's been the struggle there? Just running paid ads or LSA or paid Facebook or
Um, I mean, I guess what I've found is our website's just not converting. We're getting traffic to the website, and we're just not getting enough form fills, and that's where I feel like things are breaking down. I mean, we've run Facebook ads, we've run Google ads, and I mean, the Google ads are essentially break even. I mean, I'm sure that you probably would look at how we're doing it and have a ton of feedback from me, but it's yeah, it's I guess if I had to isolate one part of the funnel where it feels like it's breaking down, it's just our form fill rate.
I got you. Do you run that in house or do you have an agency that you work with?
I well, so Yeah, I had someone in house that was running it. I let him go. I'm kind of doing it now myself, which is, not great, not going super well. So yeah, I do not have an agency right now in house or an agency that I'm working with to manage this.
I got you. So, but you've got some good things happening, and obviously, and then you mentioned like the first go around, I didn't put a big focus. I didn't have a structure, but you're also probably that first go around drinking from the fountain hose too, right? I mean, you got bullets flying at you, being a new business owner. But no, I appreciate you sharing that. It's always interesting to me just to hear, what's working, what's not. Marketing is one of those things. It's a necessary evil, but it can be very frustrating, right? And hey, we're an agency, and I get frustrated when we're trying to do stuff just for our own brand, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, we should be doing better. What's going on here? Why? What? We're supposed to be the experts, which I think we are. But yeah, it's just I just say that in that hey, it's just always a struggle. It's just, but you just got to keep optimizing, analyzing data, making decisions, seeing what's working, what's not, and then adapt. Um, so we talked about your big growth plans, which is cool. I mean, the next 3 to 5 years, you'd really like to take this thing off. Um, what about if you were? I'm curious because I always like to ask this question. Because there's a young Chris out there wanting to start his own business. If someone came to you and say, "Hey, Chris, I know you had success. You bought a business. I'm ready to be an entrepreneur. What advice could you give me?" What would you tell that person?
Man, so many things come to mind. I guess you need to um really make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. I think you need to I would recommend thinking about, I would read sort of the foundational books like E-Myth, um, books like that that really like kind of challenge the sort of whole premise of what I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs do, which is they're good technicians, they're good at laying floors, or they're good at being a plumber. But then getting into your own business and starting your own business is like a whole different thing. And uh, just because you're a good plumber does not mean you're going to be a good business owner. So understand that business is a lot of things, and you need to have a fundamental grasp on, or at least an elementary grasp on all these things. You need to understand finance. You need to understand accounting. You need to understand marketing. You need to understand lead generation. You need to understand lead conversion. You need to understand management. You need to understand leadership. You have to have a little bit of all these things. And if you ignore any one of them, you're gonna struggle, and it's gonna be really hard.
Sure,
Um, I can't recommend in good conscience that people do what I did. I've seen a lot of people buy small businesses and really get hurt and take on a bunch of debt, and and people have a lot of regret. So I would make sure that you kind of get into this thing with eyes wide open. Um, I would share a lot of the painful stories that I went through. I mean, there were moments where I was literally curled up in a fetal position in my room crying because I thought I ruined my life, and I thought I was gonna go bankrupt. On my daughter's first birthday, I was, like, almost unable to, like, go down and, like, celebrate with my family because I was, like, just so freaked out and so, like, I thought the walls were caving in, and I thought that, like, I wasn't gonna survive this. So, it is really hard, and, I don't share those stories just to, like, 100% say, "No, don't do it," but, like, you just need to be prepared for these types of situations and moments. So that said, you know, it was the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. I've never grown more from anything in my life than small business ownership, aside from maybe having a family. Um, but it can be extremely rewarding, spiritually, financially, and if you get through it and you're able to survive, it can be an amazing thing. But it's also um, it's also the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. So I don't know, like that's what I would say to people. I think when people ask me about my experience, oftentimes they come away feeling like, oh God, I don't know if I should do this, and I think that's probably a good thing. So I don't want to sound like I'm overly bearish, but I think people seem to have eyes wide open before they make the jump.
Man, that is so, I was smiling, I was nodding my head because I've been everything you described, I've lived multiple times. And so I appreciate the transparency and just the honesty there. That's what's been so cool about doing these podcasts is just, I mean, how open people share. And yeah, man, I've been scared out of my wits at times about what's going on. And even recently, like this last few weeks, I've been waking up in the middle of the night. And my dad told me that when I first started my first business. So you're gonna wake up in the middle of the night. You know, I know you're a successful sales manager, you ran a team, you had this revenue, but it's nothing like running a business. And he was right. And I've been doing it 20 years, but it still happens. I mean, you still wake up in the middle of the night. You can't go back to sleep. And I always say the business boogeyman comes out in the middle of the night. You know, that's when he comes out in my world. But I'm just like, and I feel like I tell myself, go to sleep. You can't fix anything right now. It's 3 a.m. It's amazing. I wake up, the sun comes up. I'm always like, what was I so worked up about in the middle of the night? Like, let's go to work, let's go do it. So yeah, I've been there. People hear, hey, I bought this business, I sold it, I had a great exit strategy, and they don't understand the in between, what you described. Right. And so I love that. Someone asks you that and you're that brutally honest. That's what they need to hear. And if you still feel like going for it, go for it, baby. you know, go do it. So anyway, that was cool, man. That fired me up because it's so brutally honest and so true. Um, Chris, man,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
love
like,
visiting with you. Go ahead.
sorry, just to add on that, I mean, I still wake up at 3 in the morning. It's still happening to me, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
like I'm in a much lower risk, quote unquote, like position now where I don't have a bunch of debt from an SBA loan, but I still wake up at 3 in the morning petrified sometimes. And
Yeah. You're back in the fire.
yeah, and you're worried about this and that. You just don't even, and you try to explain it to your wife or your significant other, and they kind of look at you crazy. But I mean, I had a rough morning this morning. Like my CRM system wasn't working, and like I had to go talk to a customer because we like scuffed up their paint or something like that. And it sucks, but you got to just keep doing it. And yeah, so it still happens to me. I still feel I still have moments of sheer panic and terror, and it just is what it is. So it's as long as you're comfortable with that and you kind of know you're signing up for, then go for it.
You mentioned, yeah, 100%. You just mentioned something that that's why I love talking to entrepreneurs is because you got to find your people, someone that you can talk to that can relate to what the hell you're going through, right? Because you try to talk to your wife or a friend and they just don't get it because they're not unless your wife is actually in the business with you, which I would sounds like maybe she's not, but my wife's not. I mean, she knows what we do, this and that, but she's not. We've just kept it separate. And so I can't talk to her about what I'm going through because she doesn't get it. I can talk to you about it. I could sit down and have coffee with you and we could be like sharing our pain and we could relate to each other and help each other, just even though two totally separate worlds. So I've been fortunate. I was in a group called EO, Entrepreneurial Organization. If there's a chapter close near you, I would go check them out because wonderful organization. Are you familiar with them at all? EO?
No, but thank you for bringing that up because I don't have a good enough network for these types of conversations. And
EO
I mean, I know some small business owners, and we get together every now and then, but yeah, like that's something that I need to get better about, and I would recommend to any entrepreneur out there, like do what you're talking about, like join EO or something like that. Like find your local small business owners and build connections
yeah.
and community around that because yeah, I mean, like it's really hard to describe what I'm talking about unless you've lived it, and you need to be around people that can help you out and be a shoulder to cry on.
EO is so I was in the Fort Worth chapter, and so you have monthly events where they bring in great speakers. So that is cool. A lot of good knowledge there. But the power of EO is that you get put into a forum, and it could be 6 to 10 people, but that becomes your people, your lifeline. And you meet once a month. You have a meeting, a forum meeting, and it's very structured. Ours was from like 1 to 5, and then we went to dinner afterwards. But someone usually presents a problem or issue they're having. But it's just cool. It's 100% confidential, and it's just really safe space to open up and share and hear. And you find out really quick that everybody's got the same problems. We're all dealing with the same issues as business owners. Question is, how do you fix it? What are resources? What can you do? And the cool thing about it I like the most is you talk from a place of experience, share. So it'd be like, hey, Chris, I understand what you're going through. I had that same experience. Here's how I handled it versus, hey, Chris, man, just go do this, and that, and fix it. Like, what's like, you know what I mean? Because no one wants to be talked to like that. But anyway, just super, super powerful. There's lots of groups out there. There's another one very similar to EO for, can't remember the name, but yes, highly recommend, Chris. Dive into one of those. And man, I used to go to our forum every time I went to a forum meeting once a month. And you can't miss. You can't miss. If you're a minute late, we had $100 fine every forum. You write your own constitution. 100% confident. If you break confidentiality, you're out. Otherwise, no one will share. So it's a very safe spot. But anyway, there's
No,
days I'd be going
that's
to
a
a
great
meeting.
idea. Yeah,
Yeah, and
thank you
I'd
for
be
that.
like, I don't have time to go to this. I got too much going on, or whatever was going on in my world. Every time I left, I felt better from my forum meeting. And plus, I had a really cool group. And the dinner afterwards, where we would talk about Johnny and sports and little Johnny soccer game. When you're in the meeting, you're talking about, they say that 5%, like what's the 5%? What's really, really the issue? And not only business, but personal, family. So it's an encompass of what you're going through. But anyway, cool stuff. I think you'd really dig it because got to find your people, man. You got to find someone to talk to. So thanks for sharing, man. I want to wrap up because I've kept you a little longer, but great story. And man, I just love you being so open and honest, and the whole still waking up at 3 and really resonated with me. But hopefully those days are very few and that you'll have a lot of those, Chris, because they're not very fun. So for our listeners, if they're in Boulder or in the area and they need flooring, how can they find you? What's a great way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I don't know exactly what my handle is, but yeah, Chris Edwards on LinkedIn. If you search Chris Edwards Boulder or Niwot, Colorado, I'm sure I'll pop up. Right This Way Flooring. My email is chris@rtwflooring.com. And yeah, happy to meet up with any entrepreneurs or anyone that wants to chat, grab coffee, whatever. And I'm certainly open to meeting up, and yeah, happy to be a resource for anyone out there who might get some value out of some time with me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Chris, man, let's keep in touch. I want to hear on 20, 12 months, 24 months. I'd love to hear how that growth is working for you. I think you're going to have tons of success. You've already done it once. Now you're just going to double down on all that knowledge and take it to a whole nother level. So great chat, man. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Good talking to you.